and there's intimacy on the radio, and there's naturalness on the radio that can never be replicated on TV. The marvelous resurgence of radio as a political force in this country.
News-related radio programming is evolving.
There's a huge hole in our dialogue that can be filled by the synthesis of traditional radio and the freedom that comes from a live podcast. You're about to experience Cowboy State Politics live. Here we go. Good morning, my friends, and welcome to another incredible installment from very high above all the puerile and insipid forms of Wyoming mainstream media. This is Cowboy State Politics. I, of course, am your illustrious host, David Iverson, firmly ensconced behind the silver Cowboy State Politics microphone and broadcasting to you from the base of the Bighorns at the Cowboy State Politics Studio in Sheridan, Wyoming. Good morning, my friends, and welcome to the program. Happy Tuesday. We had a great weekend here at Cowboy State. Well, me and the lovely Christine, which is pretty much Cowboy State Politics. But there's been a number of really good episodes that this program has put out over the last couple of days. If you missed it on, on Saturday. Yesterday. I'm getting them all confused. Yesterday, I published a great interview with the CEO of the Wyoming Business Council, Josh Durrell. And if you listen to the program, we had what I think was a pretty good conversation. But I think that I was successful in explaining to him a lot of the problems that conservatives have with the Wyoming Business Council. And that is that you are monkeying in the free market, that the government is picking winners and losers, and in many cases, private business has to compete with the government, which, I mean, that's not the proper role of government at all. Really, when you get down to it, government doesn't have that many jobs. Water, sewer, I like to drive on nice, smooth roads. It'd be nice to have a police department and a fire department. And of course, you have to have some administration, and then you have to have a body that makes laws and executes those laws, the executive branch, as it were. But beyond that, the government really doesn't have any other jobs, though they'd like to get involved in just about everything, which is pretty much what the Wyoming Business Council does. They give out grants, they give out money, and during the interview, Josh Durrell tries to make the case that, most of what we do is infrastructure projects. Well, that's not business. Okay, so I guess you have to have a contractor to do that. Government generally doesn't install their own water and sewer lines. So I guess that kind of fits. But really, he doesn't go into all of the grants that they've given out to private business. And the other part of it, too, is I hammered him about all of these business parks. I mean, that is the classic example of government getting involved or trying to get involved where they shouldn't be. And, I think if you listen to the interview, it's pretty darn clear. And then on Saturday's edition of Weekend Update, it was an interview with one of the sponsors of Cowboy State Politics, Rebecca Bextel at eXp Realty. By the way, if you're going to buy or sell a house, call Rebecca. Her phone number is 307-699-3519. Anyway, she's been investigating a so-called affordable housing, and I'm going to talk about that here in just a little bit after our top story. But she's been investigating a so-called affordable housing project in Jackson, and you, my friends, paid $5 million for it. Actually, the SLIB board paid $1.25 million, and then the town of Jackson and the WCDA made up the rest, which, I mean, you pay into the WCDA, so of course you paid for it. But it's a fascinating discussion, and I think when you hear the details of this affordable housing, so-called affordable housing project, your jaw will be on the ground, or at least it should. Because there's some shocking stuff. And personally, I drove through the parking lot of this place, and it's a super nice apartment building. But, I think if you were to take it, like transport it out of Jackson and put it into, say, Casper, it would pretty much be a run-of-the-mill Casper apartment. I mean, with some local changes to it. So, I mean, it doesn't, from the outside, it doesn't look all that extravagant. But you drive through the parking lot, and there are brand new Mercedes. There's brand new BMWs. There was this beautiful, brand spanking new Ford Bronco sitting in the parking lot. So my point is if you can afford a Mercedes or a brand new BMW, you probably don't need affordable housing. And then the secondary question is, maybe the reason why the free market isn't supplying housing for people who are not independently wealthy or, who don't have that great of a job. Maybe the reason why the free market isn't providing that is because government is trying to. Anytime government gets involved in the free market, it depresses anything that the free market was going to do, and the government does it badly. If you want to screw up something, invite the government to help, and they'll get it trashed in short order. So anyway, those are the podcasts. Oh, and Wednesday, holy crap, the episode about Wyoming teachers getting screwed. That thing has been watched over 20,000 times on Facebook. Holy moly, my friends! And you talk about getting the whole state stirred up. I'm actually kind of proud of myself. But the people who should be really excited are teachers. Frankly, if you're a teacher in Wyoming and you should be absolutely pissed from what your school district did to you. It's not the legislature. It's not your local elected official. Well, I guess on the school board, yeah, they're elected officials, but it's your local school board that screwed you over. And what I'm referring to, and this document is available at cowboystatepolitics.com. It's on the show content page. But a document from the LSO, the Legislative Service Office, that shows the average raise that every school district in Wyoming gave out to their employees, and there's only one of them. And I guess I forgot to tell you too, if you're new to this whole story, that the last session the legislature passed an 8.5% raise for all teachers and all staff. So if you're a custodian, you got the raise too, or so said the legislature. Or if you were a teacher, you got the raise. Well, there was only one school district, one out of 46, 48 school districts that actually did that. And they went above and beyond. That was in Sublette County. They gave a 10% raise. All other school districts did not give their employees the full 8% raise. So on Wednesday's installment of the show, I went through that and showed you the document. And again, it's on the website, cowboystatepolitics.com, which, by the way, any time during a podcast or sometimes on this program, if I come up with an article that I reference and it might be hard to find, I put it up on the website so that you can read it for yourself and you can make up your own decisions. You see, this is what the mainstream media doesn't do. They'll tell you what they think you should think, which I know is kind of an oxymoron, but not here. Don't believe a word I say. Do your own research. Read it for yourself. Make up your own mind, which is the whole reason why I have the website. So pretty much not every podcast, but most of them, if I'm talking about an article or a document or some piece of research, you can find it on the website. So anyway, it's cowboystatepolitics.com. Go there and check it out. On today's program, we've got a number of stories there. I don't know if you've seen the pictures or the video of the murder on the train. Holy crap, my friends. This immigrant from Ukraine, she came over here, legal resident. She's sitting on a commuter train, and somebody from behind just pulls out a knife and kills her. Now, the question is, why is that allowed to happen? Because the guy that killed her had been arrested 14 times. 14 times. So he's out walking free after he's obviously a criminal. And instead of throwing him in jail where he belongs, he's out walking the streets, and he kills this poor woman. It is I'm not going to show you the video because I find it pretty hard to watch. And frankly, I don't want to watch it again. But there's a picture, and I'll show you that one. And it pretty much explains everything you need to see. So anyway, that one picture explains the Democrat Party, and we're going to talk about that. So let's see here. Next up, from the Wyoming Tribune Eagle. This is the article that I was talking about a little bit ago. That they're claiming that the reason we don't have affordable housing, so-called affordable housing, is because of the free market. That the free market has failed, and that there is a systemic problem in the free market. And the truth couldn't be any different, my friends. That the reason why we don't have so-called affordable housing is because government gets involved and they monkey with the system and they pick winners and losers. That's the whole reason why you don't have so-called affordable housing. So just a couple of the stories we're going to get involved in today. And if you want to be part of the show this morning, the phone number in the studio is 307-374-8989, 307-374-8989. I'm going to leave the phone lines open for the duration of the program. We haven't done that in a while. And so I thought, why the heck not just leave the whole thing open? And if there's, if you want to comment on a story that I'm discussing, then go ahead. There's the phone line. Down, I guess it's over here. No, it's over here. Down at the bottom of the screen. 307-374-8989 is the number in the studio. But we begin with that horrendous picture. And actually, it's a video. But there's a piece in, let's see here, where did I get this from? I always do that. I don't put the name of the article of the outlet on there. But this is PJ Media. Okay. But the title of the piece is "The Image That Killed the Democrats in 2026 and Beyond." And I quote, "And just like that, it's over for the Democrats in 2026, maybe even in the 2028 general election. Maybe this is even the final nail in their creaky, splintering, mentally ill Marxist coffin. Right now, they're trying to ignore it, the way that they tried to pretend that Hunter Biden's laptop didn't exist in 2020. They were successful enough that time to push their vote machine over the finish line in the Biden-Harris favor. But that won't happen this time. This story, this image is already out there. But still, they're trying to ignore it, and they're hoping that it just goes away. The only explanation that I've seen anywhere is, quote, it was never covered nationally because it's only a local story. Sure. Like George Floyd's overdose in police custody was only a local story. Good luck with that dodge, lefties. In all fairness to the Democrats, their policies have made this situation so common that it may well have disappeared into the din. A violent lunatic with 14 previous arrests under his belt, but who still freely roamed the streets, randomly and viciously stabbed a young woman on a train, killing her. Now, and here's the irony of it. Democrats for the last 4 years have been screaming how we have to help Ukraine. We have to give them money. We have to give them weapons. We have to let Ukrainian citizens into the country so that they can have asylum. And then when one of them does, they are violently killed by one of the people that the Democrats refused to prosecute, that they allowed to be arrested 14 different times. And this woman paid for it with her life. And that is the state of the Democrat Party. But it gets worse for the Democrats. The victim was not only a young female and beautiful, but she was a refugee from Ukraine, one of their fetish victims, as it were. The New York Post is one outlet that covered the story. A haunting new video revealed a terrifying moment. A homeless ex-con allegedly fatally stabbed a 23-year-old Ukrainian refugee in what police said was a random attack on a Charlotte light rail train. Yeah, Well, it was random, except, of course, if you consider that the guy that killed her had been arrested 14 times. In that sense, my friends, it's not random at all. If you allow a deranged individual out of jail, out of custody, after you've already arrested him a whole bunch of times, you are condoning what he did. And there's no other rationale around it. The first 5 or 6 times he was arrested, you would think that maybe Charlotte police would think that maybe there was a problem there. Maybe, I don't know, maybe this guy didn't need to be roaming around the streets. But evidently, he did. They did. So this poor Ukrainian woman paid for it with her life, and now the media is ignoring it. And it's one thing to, what would I say? It's one thing to just kind of give a story sort of lip service, which I, of course, never do when there was something important that I think you need to see. Then I show it to you, but not the Democrats. For example, I'm going to show you. I've got a graphic here of which outlets covered this story. Now, check this out, because you're going to see a reoccurring theme, and that is zero. And the truth is, my friends, that let's make sure that this hit the screen. Yeah, there it is. Okay. So the AP covered it, 0 stories. There were 0 stories in PBS, the New York Times, NPR, the Wall Street Journal, the BBC, CNN, and the Washington Post. None of them covered this story. And that's the picture that I was showing you. You can see the deranged person behind her getting ready to stab this poor woman. But this, my friends, sums up the Democrat Party in 2026 and, frankly, in probably 2028. It is the perfect example of how the Democrats govern, how they run things, and what happens when you leave Democrats in charge. They turn crime and punishment into a social experiment that somehow the lives of ordinary and this is how they look at it. You and me are ordinary, average nobodies. In the words of one of our our state committee woman. Yeah, we're just a little people. Yeah, we're trying to get rid of her. Or at least I would love to get rid of her. But that's how the left, and she's a total redcoat, by the way. But that's how the left views you and me, that we're just the little people, and it's okay to experiment on us, which is exactly what the Democrat Party has done with crime and punishment in this country. That it is all a social experiment, and that maybe the reason why we have so much crime is because, maybe these people grew up without dads. Okay, that's probably true for a large number of them, but that doesn't erase what they did. A crime is a crime is a crime, and the only way that you prevent crime is if you prosecute it. And the trouble with our friends on the other side, as all these politicians like to say, is they don't want to prosecute crime. They treat your life and my life like it's one big gigantic social experiment that they can toy with. We're nothing more than lab rats. And I think this is a perfect example of how they view you. They let this guy out of jail 14 times in a row. And he's not sitting behind bars where he belongs. Well, he is now. But rather, he was allowed to kill an innocent human being, and one that the Democrats said we have to protect at all for, in any way that we possibly can. That's the message that Democrats gave us about Ukraine. And what's the very first thing that happens when one of those Ukrainian citizens comes into our country? Well, they're murdered by a violent criminal that the Democrats should have put in jail a long time ago. But don't ever underestimate the political opportunism of the Democrats, because the Charlotte mayor, the person who's in charge of that whole town, has used this brutal train murder to lecture us about mental health resources. This one's from the Daily Wire. Listen to this. Charlotte, North Carolina Mayor Vi Lyles released a statement following a brutal stabbing on the city's public transit system, blaming the horrific situation, quote, on a lack of social safety nets, and claiming that there was no way to arrest our way out of issues such as homelessness and mental health. No, But there is a way to arrest our way out of criminals on the street. Put them in jail where they belong. Now, a video circulated of DeCarlos Brown Jr., that was the name of the guy that killed that poor woman, who was known by local police to be homeless and not mentally stable. He attacked this Ukrainian refugee, and her name is, Irina Zarutska, on August 22nd, while both were aboard the light rail. She stabbed her 3 times with a folding knife. Police said that he stabbed her at least once in the neck, and as she collapsed on the floor, Brown could be seen getting up, taking off his sweatshirt, and standing by the doors. And at the time of the attack, Brown was reportedly on the train without a ticket. Now, the most disturbing part about the video, and again, I'm not going to show it to you because, man, my friends, I find it hard to watch. Excuse me. I think you can see everything you need to see from that picture, and I'll go ahead and show it to you again. But it's, man, my friends, the only way that we're going to fix this, or that we're going to be able to fix it, is if we prosecute these people. And right now, we're not doing that. It really kills me. Anyway, my friends, let's see if I can share the entire screen. Okay, here we go. Yep, you can see it, and let me just make it full screen for you just in case. So for current slide, here you go. Here's the picture that I was referring to. That's him, Brown Jr., standing behind this poor woman, and he's about to stab her. So, I mean, it's horrible, my friends, and we've got to do better as a country. And the best way to do that is, if we start prosecuting criminals, we start doing our job, we start running the country the way that we told our citizens that we would. It's only that way that we're going to be able to, move past this in any way, in any meaningful way. But right now, I think the long and the short of this is the Democrats are done in 2026. This image should be the graphic of the Democrat Party in the next election. And frankly, in 2028, because this is the result of Democrat policies. It always ends this way, my friends, because their ideas, and I've often told you that the Democrats' ideas, they don't really work in the real world. Well, they don't ever work in the real world. But if you're on a university campus surrounded by your egghead buddies, your experimentations probably make sense. But in the real world, they don't work, my friends, which is why we have to continue to elect conservatives. And I think you can see the evidence of that right now, that Trump is fixing so many things in our country, that, from the economy to crime. And just look at what he's done in Washington, D.C. In that city was overrun by criminals and gangs. And I mean, there were murders. And in a short couple of weeks, he's cleaned up that entire city. And there are other towns like Chicago that really should say, hey, President Trump, go ahead and send him in and let's clean this place up. But it is the Democrats and their Trump derangement syndrome that prevents them from doing their job, that prevents them from running the country the way that they should. And so in 2026, this needs to be the poster for the Democrats and all of their supporters. And I do include the redcoats in there, the rhinos, because they're absolutely in favor of this sort of stuff. And if you're not going to support conservative values, don't call yourself a conservative. The only reason you're doing that is so you can lie to your constituents. But anyway, my friends, that is the extent of the Democrat Party. Now, we're a little bit short before the break, but this next topic, so-called affordable housing, it's kind of a long one, and I want to have time to go through this because there's a lot of connections to where I live, to the state, to the episode that I published on Saturday. And so we're going to go ahead and take a quick break. And when we come back, we're going to talk about so-called affordable housing. And we'll do that next. But first, a profit timeout. Everybody say, now it's gone away. Rocks now down, nothing left today. No one gets today. We got to see the truth, now it's far away. Tell me what you want. Here's what you got. You've been every day more than we have ever seen. Rocks now down, don't ask why. It's spring-ish in Wyoming. Well, what that means for the uninitiated is that it's going to be 70 degrees one day and then snow 1.5 feet the next. And really, if you don't like those two options, just wait a little bit. The weather will change. I know, it sounds a little stressful, but really you should put your mind at ease and buy a pair of socks from the Buffalo Wool Company. They'll keep you warm and dry even on the nastiest, coldest spring-ish day, and they'll keep you cool and dry even when it's 75 and sunny. To get you a pair, go to their website, thebuffalowoolco.com. Trust me, you're not going to be disappointed. Are you one of those guys that listen to the president just a little bit too closely and now you're tired of winning? Are you getting the feeling that there's been way too many good things happening in our country and you just can't take it anymore? Well, if you are, and you think you should follow Rosie O'Donnell's example and get the heck out of Dodge, you need to call Rebecca Bextel at eXp Realty. She'll make those foreign country living ideas a reality for you. All you have to do is call 307-699-3519, and she'll make sure some freedom-loving, red-blooded American will now live in the home that you no longer want. If you want to sell your house, or if you want to buy one that's way better than the house you have right now, give Rebecca a call. Again, her phone number is 307-699-3519.
I've never felt the freedom like I do. I feel stronger every day, don't you? Well, I can show you how. A new day, a new way. Watch out, I'm only gonna get stronger. A new day, a new way. Watch out, I'm only gonna get stronger. A new day, a new way. Watch out, I'm only gonna get stronger. A new day, a new way. Watch out, I'm only gonna get stronger. I've never felt the freedom like I do. I feel stronger every day. I'm only gonna get stronger.
Cowboy State Politics is only going to continue to expand. This program is getting bigger faster than I ever knew that it could. You can listen to the podcast every Monday, Wednesday, and Saturday, everywhere that you get your podcasts. You can watch Cowboy State Politics live every Tuesday through Friday from 8 to 10 a.m. on Facebook, YouTube, X, and on Rumble. And I'm working on a couple of other outlets. I'll let you know how that goes. Also, as it relates to that, we're getting really close to the announcement that I've been teasing you with for, man, it seems like the last couple of months. But I've got something big coming, my friends. And if you want to be, the way I want to put this is, if you want to be on top of the news, you've got to stay ahead of these people. And by these people, of course, I mean the lamestream Wyoming press that are that really they only have one agenda, and that's to lie to you and convince you of something that's just not true, which I guess, of course, is lying. But they're totally in the tank with the redcoats, and they don't give you a full picture. And so I firmly believe that you should read all sources. You should read the things that you agree with. You should read the things that you don't agree with. Read the things they tell you not to. Get a full picture of what the subject is, and then make up your own darn mind. But the only way that you can do that is if you have a vehicle to help you do that. And so I've come up with something that I think is I think it's pretty awesome, and I can't wait to let you in on it. I can't wait to reveal it to you. And I'm going to have to do it kind of slowly, but in probably next week, let's say next Wednesday, I'm going to tell you what that is. That way it'll coincide with the podcast. I'm going to go ahead and announce what I've been working on next Wednesday. I think it's pretty big. I think it's going to be pretty awesome. So I'll let you know next Wednesday of what it is. Oh, and here's the thing. My birthday is on Saturday. By the way, if you want to send me presents, go ahead. You can send them in advance. It'll be great. But my birthday is on Saturday. And so this announcement is kind of a birthday present to yours truly from me. And I joke about it, but I've been working really hard on this, and I hope that it's really a service to you. Yeah, of course, I want to make a little bit of money with it because I'm a capitalist and this is America, and we should be focusing on the free market. which is something that the Sheridan Press and the Wyoming Tribune Eagle, the Wyoming Turkey Vulture, want you to believe is broken. Now, there's a piece in the Sheridan Press, but you know what these media outlets do in Wyoming is they write one article, or one of these outlets writes one article, and then they syndicate it across the entire state, and it makes you think that that particular outlet, whether it's the Turkey Vulture or the Cow Pie or any of these outlets, that it's an original article, and it makes it appear that that different news agencies are picking up on the same story and they're writing their own version of it, when in reality, it's all the same. And in this case, it comes from the Sheridan Press. Now, the piece is entitled, "Report Says Half as Many Affordable and Available Rental Homes as Needed in Wyoming." And, okay, so maybe that's true. And I think it probably is. A rental unit in just about any town in America is going to run, or in Wyoming, definitely, is going to run you north of $1,000 a month. I think in Sheridan, last I heard, one of the going rate in an apartment house was like $1,700 a month, which I think is outrageous, by the way. But that price is driven by scarcity. It's supply and demand, the way the free market is supposed to operate. But the question is, why aren't there more housing options available? And I'm going to get into that here in just a second. But first, let me go to the article. Quote, from the Sheridan Press: "There are only 5 affordable and available homes for every 10 extremely low-income renter households in Wyoming, according to a 2025 report by the National Low Income Housing Coalition. Wyoming ranked relatively well compared to other states when it comes to rental accessibility, but nationwide, no state has an adequate supply of affordable rental housing for the lowest income renters, according to the NLIHC's 2025 GAP report. To be considered extremely low income, a household must have an income at or below either the federal poverty guideline or 30% of the area median income, whichever amount is higher." So, full stop right there. Why is it the government's job to find you a place to live? It isn't. That's not in the Constitution. Nowhere does it say that you have a right to a nice home with with air conditioning and a 2-car garage. I don't even have a garage. I have a little shed. But nowhere is it written that the government should have any control over that whatsoever. No. Though that is one of those things that is entirely left up to you, my friends. That if you want a place to live and you don't want to be living in your car, maybe you should go get a job. Or 2, or 3. But it is entirely up to you. So first, it is not the government's job to provide you with housing, nor is it the government's job to help. Though we do have programs available for some of our more indigent countrymen. And, while I am not in favor of the government being in the business of housing, I'm okay. I'm kind of okay with that one. I mean, there are some people that I think that probably we could use some help with, whether it's a small amount of subsidy. And this is a really fine line, because you start down this road, and the question is, where does it end? It's I think it's okay as conservatives to, and I think we should do this, to turn issues around in our head and to just look at it from all angles. I think you should do that before you make any decision. But as far as providing housing for you, I think that's your responsibility. It's not the government's job. But this piece continues. The threshold to be considered extremely low in Sheridan County was $20,200 for a single-person household. All right, so if you're only making $20,000 a year, let's do a little bit of math here. So, like, if you work 40 hours a week and you make, let's say, the going rate of, and I think you can go pretty much anywhere and make $20 an hour. At least I think that's what I saw down at McDonald's. Can you believe that? $20 an hour to go flip burgers. But anyway, so that's $800 a week, and you times that by 4, that's $3,200 a month, times 12, that's $38,400 per month. So if you just work at McDonald's, which I think that one of the reasons why that type of work was, at least when I grew up, was considered entry level, is because anybody could get that job. Anybody can get a job working at McDonald's, and at the going rate of 38 grand a year, you're well above the federal poverty guideline. So in that sense, there is no reason why anybody shouldn't be able to get housing. Now, there is a second function in here that we're missing, but the Sheridan Press is going to get to that here in just a second. According to the Gap report, a minimum wage worker in Wyoming would need to work 93 hours a week or 2.3 full-time jobs to afford the average fair market rental cost of $1,000 for a two-bedroom apartment. The full-time worker would need to earn an hourly wage of $20.98 to afford a two-bedroom rental home with rent and utilities without paying more than 30% of their income on his home, which would mean an average annual earnings of $43,000 annually. That number, my friends, is ridiculous. $43,000 is not low income. And the truth is, if you're to spend, and I think the number that generally is accepted, that you should spend about a third of your income on your rental expenses. Well, if you're cranking down over $3,000 a month at your $20 an hour McDonald's job, then you can definitely afford that $1,000 a month rent. But the Sheridan Press goes on. More than 90% of extremely low-income renters, either in the labor force, are seniors or have a disability, or are in school, or are single adult caregivers. 42 states have 45 or fewer units per 100 households. And then we get to why the Sheridan Press thinks that these rental homes don't exist. And here's what they say, quoting from the article: the shortage of affordable housing for the lowest income renters is, quote, systemic and rooted in the limitations of the private market. And they continue, often what extremely low income renters can afford to pay for rent does not cover the development or operating costs of new housing, and it often is not sufficient to provide an incentive for landlords to maintain older, lower cost housing. Quoting again, the result of that is that the free market on its own fails to provide an adequate supply of affordable housing for the lowest income renters in nearly every community. And here's the kicker. Issues in Wyoming are also systemic. So wait a minute. So the free market is failing, and that's why the government needs to step in. Maybe the reason why the free market isn't providing lower income housing is that the government is involved in the first place. The point here is that government should not be involved in the free market. And the reason why you don't have so-called affordable housing is because the government is involved. Because there's no incentive for private developers to build low-income housing because they'd be in competition with the government. It's the classic example of picking winners and losers. That why would a developer put up an inexpensive or a lower income apartment building, which, by the way, does make money, when they have to compete with the government? Think this won't work? I direct your attention to a company called Fastenal. Fastenal got started selling nickel and dime bolts. Now you have to sell a heck of a lot of nickel and dime bolts to make any sort of profit, but they did, and now they're one of the largest companies in America. So don't tell me that you can't make money selling lower priced goods like rental units in an apartment. The reason why developers don't build smaller apartments is that they don't want to have to compete with the government. That is the reason. It's not a systemic problem. Well, actually, the only systemic problem is the one that we've created, in that the government is picking winners and losers. If you got the government out of the way, the free market would pick up. It's supply and demand, my friends. If there is a buck to be made somewhere, someone will figure out how to make it. But when they have to compete with the federal government, or the state government for that matter, there's no incentive for them to do that. And, back to Fastenal. If they can make money selling, now they probably charged, 25 and 50 cents for their bolts and nuts. But if they can make money doing that, you can make money building an apartment building. And the only reason that developers don't do that is they don't want to have to compete with the government, who can put up a building anywhere at any time, and they don't really care what the costs are. And in Sheridan, I shouldn't say just in Sheridan, because I just published an episode on Saturday about so-called affordable housing and that it leads to graft. That's exactly what happened with that outfit in Jackson. Is a developer got a whole bunch of your money, built a housing development, and now he's putting his employees in it for pretty much next to nothing cost when you consider the price of housing in Jackson. And he doesn't have to pay his workers a high enough wage so that they can live there. It's absolutely graft. And that's what happens when you get the government involved in any of these things. The free market isn't broken, my friends. It's the government monkeying around in it that creates the problem. If you want to solve your housing problem, get the heck out of the way and let the free market operate, because it will. If there is a need, the free market will provide. And, again, if you go work at McDonald's at $20 an hour, and it's not just McDonald's. I saw a sign at Walmart the other day, hiring stockers for $18 an hour. So there are a multiplicity of jobs everywhere you drive in Sheridan. Oh, well, just about everywhere. You'll see a help wanted sign. So don't tell me that you can't get a job. Don't tell me that you can't make enough money to pay your bills. You can. It's just that the government is in the middle of it. And who wants to compete with somebody that has endless cash? And I certainly don't. I mean, it's just absolutely insane. And I've got to tell you, my friends, that the Sheridan Press publishes an article that essentially says the free market is broken is an outrage. And I don't really, and Ashley Snoozy at the Sheridan Press, I really don't care what you think of me. I don't even care that you don't think I'm legitimate news. Well, I'm not the one that's claiming that the free market is broken. And then, telling your editorial staff, well, I don't know why people don't want to advertise with us. Maybe it's because you're a socialist. And here's the problem, my friends, is that in socialism doesn't work because the people at the top, they're not really socialists. Okay, they're full-blown capitalists. And I've been playing this soundbite a lot I played it on Saturday's installment of the program, but there's a great piece from Rush Limbaugh where he's talking with about the problems between socialism and capitalism. Let's just take a listen to what he has to say. It's kind of long, but I think it's a great piece. But take a listen to this. The problem with socialism.
The problem with socialism is socialism. The problem with capitalism is capitalists. Now, before you think this is a criticism of capitalism, it's not. The problem with socialism is itself. There's nothing wrong with capitalism, except there are some people who game the system. But in socialism, why has socialism never worked? Because the people who run it are not socialists. They are full-fledged capitalists. Go to the Soviet Union, go to China, go to Cuba. The sons and daughters of party members do what? They live in the nicest houses. They have the nicest cars. They go to the nicest schools. The people in power in socialist societies have the power to game the system for themselves. In capitalism, you do it through your work. You do it through your education. You do it by accessing opportunity in the private sector. Socialism has the same kind of people who don't want to be equal with everybody else, where, socialism exists on this premise that we're all the same and we're all equal, and we're going to take from those who have and redistribute to those who don't so that everybody's going to have the same. But it never works out. And why not? Because there's always a ruling class that has everything they want, forcing mediocrity, averageness on everybody else. And the people left are still trying to game the system to get out of their squalid circumstances. So it never works. It never can work because socialism is in direct violation of human nature. Capitalism is not. Capitalism embodies human nature from freedom to ambition on down the line. Nobody has ever said unfettered capitalism. Nobody has ever said we need an unregulated market. The difference is, you need a referee, as in the government. But when the referee starts playing the game, then we're all cooked. And the referee is now playing the game. The referee is owning car companies. The referee is owning the banking business, trying to take it over. The referee is now taking over the healthcare business. Just like in the socialist communist countries of China and the Soviet Union, Russia, Cuba, Venezuela, wherever. And wherever you go, and examine lifestyles in those countries, you are going to find abject misery except for the chosen few at the top. And those who are not the chosen few are trying to game their way to get in there because they're using basic human nature. So, no.
See, there you go. I mean, he is exactly right that the people that are supposed to be the referees are involved in the game. It's like the Kansas City Chiefs are playing everywhere. I'm not a big football fan anymore, but I've been told that the referees favor the Kansas City Chiefs anytime they play. But that's exactly the problem, my friends. It's that the government gets involved. They're supposed to be the referee, but they start playing the game. They've got unlimited funds, and I mean, and then they claim that the free market is broken, which is why they need to be involved. Well, they're the ones that broke it in the first place. And it's absolutely amazing, my friends, that a private business, i.e. the Sheridan Press, is advocating for socialism. Because that's what they're doing. Anytime you say that the free market is broken, then that's why. And it's that same George Bush stupid soundbite. I had to break the free market to save the free market. It's idiotic. And so is the Sheridan Press. I cannot believe that they think that you are dumb enough to swallow this. But obviously that they do, because they wouldn't print it otherwise. I mean, just absolutely amazing, my friends. And, if I were you, I would cancel your subscription to the Sheridan Press, or whatever you want to call the Sheridan pile of crap, and seek your media elsewhere. And if you want to, hey, Sheridan Press, Ashley Snoozy, let me give you a huge revelation. The reason why your subscriptions are going down and your advertisers are going down is because they're tired of your crappy content. They're tired of your abject socialism in your paper, that every attempt that you have to advocate for the Democrat Party and trash Republicans, you do it. Even in as much as you try to circumvent their meetings. Let's not forget, it was not that long ago during the Sheridan County Republican elections that the Sheridan Press didn't publish the public notice on purpose in time for that meeting to be legal. They're absolutely injecting themselves into the game. And, I mean, you should cancel your subscription tomorrow because, I mean, you're going to get more of this socialism crap. And it's, really, in the end, I guess we should just laugh at them, not buy their stupid paper and just absolutely laugh at them. But, hey, Ash, if you need any more media advice, give me a call. You can call in. By the way, if you want to be part of the show today, the phone number in the studio is 307-374-8989, 307-374-8989. 8989. And Ashley Snoozy, if you want to call in and join the program, I would love to give you an explanation as to why your subscription rates suck. Moving on from Breitbart, Crazy Crockett, Yasmin Crockett, is at it again, and she says that Trump doesn't have a moral compass or an honest bone in his body. Now, Yasmin Crockett, I don't know why we look to her as any authority on anything, but she sure says some entertaining stuff. And this piece is from Breitbart, and I quote, "On Monday, during an appearance on CNN's The Source, Representative Yasmin Crockett of Texas stated that President Donald Trump lacks a moral compass and an honest bone in his body. Host Caitlin Collins says, quote, on the drawing itself, the White House has denied that," and they were talking about this Epstein drawing, they've denied that the drawing existed. They denied that it was Trump's signature. Tonight, they are denying it, saying that releasing it is proof that it's not his signature. I mean, we showed obviously examples that mirror it. What do you make of this White House defense here? And Crockett said, "The fact is, the president is a liar." And in this case, I think that we should probably just let Yasmin Crockett say it for herself. And let me get here where we're going. Here we go. Yasmin Crockett. Here you go.
And it had some things that really made you feel like it was somebody that was young, because it was talking about the ability to learn, like a quick learner or something like that. I don't remember the exact language. But it's really disturbing. And honestly, it's really a sad day in this country that this is the guy that is
okay, all right. Hold on. I can't take this anymore. I'll play the rest of it in just a second. But is anybody else tired of this fake verbal inflection where the end of every sentence goes up? But this guy, and it just irritates the crap out of me. It is clearly an example of Yasmin Crockett slipping back into her social media influencing career or whatever it is, but it's just her pattern of speech irritates the living crap out of me, just like Barack Obama. Everybody says that guy was a great orator. No, he wasn't. You know, maybe his cadence resonated with you, but I thought it sucked. I found it really irritating, just like Yasmin Crockett. So let's continue with her. Here we go.
I mean, we used to care about the morality of a leader, but when you're looking at this and you're looking at his actions overall, it doesn't seem like he has a moral compass or that he has an honest bone in his body.
And we don't know that Trump wrote that. Do you know if that information has been vetted, or is it in the process of being vetted, whatever's the most?
Okay, all right. Trump doesn't have a moral bone in his body, and he doesn't have a moral compass. Well, I mean, consider the source. It's Yasmin Crockett, who spends more time working on her social media influencing campaign than she does actually doing her job. And even if she did do her job, I don't really think that she'd get anything done. Most people become so irritated with the way she talks, they wouldn't want to listen to her anyway. So let's see here. Next up in the stack, and I told you last week about the stack of stuff. I still haven't gone back and gone out and got ink cartridges for my printer, so I still have to do this online, or on the computer. Here we go. Next story. The New York Post. The Biden White House lawyers and the DOJ were absolutely befuddled by the Otto Penn Clemency's emails show. Quote, he doesn't review the warrants. And I quote, President Biden's sweeping clemency grants during his final days in office caused concern inside the West Wing and the Justice Department about how to ensure that his wishes were accurately implemented. Well, that would be kind of hard since he probably didn't have anything to do with any of those clemencies or pardons. But it's unclear whether Biden himself was consulted before thousands of pardons were announced, internal emails obtained exclusively by the Post show. The messages indicate that the 46th president orally approved commutations for inmates jailed for crack cocaine offenses on January 11th, but his Otto Penn signature wasn't affixed to 3 documents listing about 2,500 recipients until the morning of January 17th. The debate over who exactly to include in the mass pardons and how to modify their sentences came to a head late on the night of January 17th. So the day before these things went out. Then White House Staff Secretary Steph Feldman, a key gatekeeper of the presidential auto pen, wrote to West Wing lawyers she needed evidence Biden had consulted before she authorized a mechanical signature on one of the most sweeping acts of clemency in American history. Quote, I'm going to need an email from the deputy assistant to the president, Rosa Poe is her last name, on original chain, confirming that the president signs off on the specific documents when they're ready. Feldman wrote to 5 other Biden aides at 9 o'clock that night. 6 minutes later, Deputy White House counsel Taisha Dixon, one of the email recipients, forwarded the message from Michael Posada, the chief of staff to the White House counsel's office. Quote, Michael's thoughts on how to handle this, Dixon added, adding in reference to the documents authorizing clemency. He doesn't review the warrants. Okay, talk to Steph, Posada replied to Dixon at about 10 o'clock. An email chain between the White House officials indicated that Biden did not give final approval to the list of inmates granted clemency. Quote, we will just need something from Rosa once the documents are ready, confirming that the 21 people commuted to home confinement are who the president signed off on in the document titled X. And the number of individuals listed in the document titled Y are those with crack powder disparities. So that's the whole thing that the Democrats always talk about, the disparity between powder cocaine and crack cocaine, which, by the way, interestingly enough, that was Joe Biden's bill. He's the one that wrote the bill increasing the penalties for crack cocaine. It's fascinating that it's his staff that were attempting to erase all of those convictions. Let's see here. Basically, something from Rosa making clear that the documents accurately reflect his decision. If you can give me a blurb whenever they're ready to suggest to Rosa, I can press on. The mass clemency was announced hours later at 4:59 a.m. The exchange took place well outside of Biden's known regular working schedule, with White House aides leaking to media outlets months earlier that the Democrat was at his best between 10 a.m. and 4 p.m. on any given day. Poe had indicated in a prior email that Biden told multiple officials on January 11th that he wanted to, quote, commute the sentences of those with crack powder sentencing disparities who were determined by the DOJ not to have a high likelihood of recidivism as determined by standards set forth by the First Step Act. It's unclear whether Biden actually gave the final go-ahead, as Feldman requested on January 16th, but the email suggests that aides instead incorporated Poe's attestation, so attesting to that, of what he intended to do. So it's becoming pretty clear that Biden really didn't have all that much influence on these pardons. And if he did, it wasn't in specific. It was all in general about who he, the type of criminal that he wanted to pardon. But that's not how presidential pardons work. I mean, it's always a matter of the president saying this person has their sentence commuted. And, to be fair, both Democrats and Republicans have pardoned people at the last minute. It was Bill Clinton that commuted the sentences on his, the last few hours of his presidency, his second term, of some pretty controversial people, and Barack Obama did the exact same thing. But here's the letter. And I think that let's see if I can show it to you. It looks a little blurry, but let's go ahead and take a look at this. Let's see here, share screen and presentation. Here we go. Okay, now let me just make this full screen and see if you can see it. Now, what it says, and this is from Taisha Dixon, and it was sent to Michael Posada, so the two people that I referenced earlier. But it says, Michael, thoughts on how to handle this? He doesn't review the warrants. And then if you look down in the email chain, it says, thanks for flagging. The first set of the 21 names listed are the home confinement individuals. The next 3 names are part of a broader set of crack cocaine or crack powder disparity cases, but their sentences are a bit different, so they're listed on this warrant. Our team is working on the larger warrant. Okay, so, I think it's pretty clear that it was White House aides that were involved in this, that it really wasn't President Joe Biden that was authorizing any of these commutations in any way. So, it's just another example of the how do you want to put it? I guess we would say the criminality of the Biden presidency. And it is a crime to fraudulently use the president's signature. And I think that's exactly what they did. I don't think there's any question about it. Just another example. So, I guess one big question, my friends, is they don't have Joe Biden anymore. President Barack Obama is kind of out of favor with mainstream Democrats, and certainly is out of favor with the majority of the electorate that elected Donald Trump. So the big question is who the heck is in charge of the Democrat Party? Now, we know in Wyoming, I was at a meeting last night, yesterday actually, where the state GOP chairman, Brian Miller, announced that Democrats only had about 11% of the electorate in Wyoming, which it's actually more than that. It's just because most of the Democrats engaged in crossover voting, and they're now in the Republican Party. Because the Democrats really don't have any primary to speak of. Because most people in Wyoming are not Democrats, and they're not wacko liberals. They're conservative Republicans, definitely right of center. And then there's a whole spectrum of how conservative folks are. And there's I would hope that most people are just as conservative as I am, but I know that that's not necessarily the truth. So most people in Wyoming, definitely right of center, and it's all kind of along a continuum. I could point out several people in elective office that, while generally speaking they're conservative, they still vote, in some kind of wacky ways. Representative Ocean Andrew is a good example of that. I really like him. He's a conservative, and certainly when you compare him to his district, he represents kind of North Laramie. He's definitely conservative, and I think he's the most conservative person that you're probably going to get in that seat. But there again, he votes for government spending. He voted for the Convention of States, so not as conservative as I want. But one of the reasons why the Democrats are failing is that they really, well, I mean, I guess they do have a leader. The question is, who is he? And we'll take a quick break, and then I'm going to tell you who is actually leading the Democrat Party when we come back, because it's not anybody that they're thinking of. In fact, they'd be shocked to find out the truth. I'll tell you about it in just a second.
Ever since gold backing was removed from the dollar, the value has dropped significantly over the past few decades. Experts say this is one of the main reasons goods are more expensive and your savings are worth less each year. How would you know how many dollars to save for retirement if the valuation of the dollar changes over time? Would you work all week for that $20 gold piece? Let's look at the valuation of this coin from the 1970s to today. When President Nixon took us off the gold standard in 1971, this coin traded for about $275. Today, it trades for about $14,000. Buying and holding rare coins using only a fraction of your portfolio is our suggested way to save for the future. Call U.S. Coin Capital at 1-800-878-2646 to get your free United States Gold and Silver Buyer's Guide.
Make sure that you subscribe and follow the Cowboy State Politics podcast. You can do that from the website, cowboystatepolitics.com, or anywhere that you get your podcasts. That way, you'll make sure that you won't miss a single episode of Cowboy State Politics. Welcome to Lessons in Civility by Morton Buildings. Gentlemen, is your garage completely jam-packed full of all of your unnecessary crap, and your lovely wife has been on your tail, nagging you non-stop to clean it out? It's not because she just wants to incessantly irritate you. Chivalry dictates that you should clear out a space so she can park her car inside and you don't end up sleeping on the couch anymore. To do that, contact Nick and Jesse at Morton Buildings. Their phone number is 307-674-2532. Not only are they the experts in metal building construction, they're also skilled at keeping you out of the doghouse. One more time. Their phone number is 307-674-2532, or you can check them out at their website, mortonbuildings.com. This has been Lessons in Civility from Morton Buildings. Welcome back to the program, Cowboy State Politics Live. I'm your host, David Iverson, documented to be almost always right 99% of the time. A record, well, really, I wish the Wyoming media would try to eclipse that record, or at least, attempt to tell you the truth. But the truth is they don't. And the more we let them off, the more they will keep doing what they're doing. And I mean, that's why Cowboy State Politics exists, is to hold, to inform you and to beat up on the Wyoming mainstream media whenever possible, and just to report the news the way that it ought to. And the difference between my program and the media is that I'm honest about my biases. And I think that I agree with the truth. I believe in the truth. And the truth is that free market economics and conservatism always leads to prosperity and has created the greatest country this world has ever known. The most powerful, the most charitable, the kindest, the most caring country in the world, and all of that has happened because of free market capitalism. It's not because of the Democrat Party. Their plans never work. Socialism has never worked in the history of the world. Well, I guess if your goal is to kill millions and millions of people, then yeah, it's pretty good about doing that. But as far as making your life better, no, it always leads to poverty, misery, and death. So if you have if that's your party, right, the party of poverty, misery, and death, who do you tap to be the leader of it? Who is it that is going to take up the mantle of that? Well, I mean, nobody in their right mind would do that, which, I mean, I've met a lot of Democrats. I've talked to a lot of them. Some of them are good, well-meaning people, but a lot of them not exactly living in the real world, or at least they don't really have a firm grasp of the history of this country. You ever notice that the economy goes down when it's a Democrat and up? I don't know. I mean, maybe I'm just pointing out the obvious. But there's some folks over at CNN that think that it's not Joe Biden or Barack Obama or Hillary Clinton that's the leader of the Democrat Party. It's that Donald Trump is the true leader of the Democrat Party. From the Daily Caller, CNN senior political commentator Scott Jennings said Sunday on State of the Union that President Donald Trump is the true leader of the Democrat Party. Democrats have projected confidence about winning back voters in the upcoming election, despite struggling since 2024 to unite behind one message or leader. While discussing the party's future direction, former DNC spokesperson Xochitl Himjosa. Why can't they just pick somebody that has a name Joe Smith or Jane Smith? It's always these names that I've never even heard of these people. Anyway, so it was maybe it's because nobody really wants to work at CNN. And if you do, I mean, you must be like shackled to a desk or something. Oh, incidentally enough, I haven't mentioned for a while that Cowboy State Politics is number 31 on the FeedSpot list of the 100 podcasts, 100 best podcasts in America. And we're a little bit ahead of Mr. Scott Jennings on his podcast. So, no offense, Scott. You're welcome to come on the program anytime. I would love to have you. I think it would be a great discussion. But anyway, this Himjosa woman dismissed the idea that socialist New York City mayoral nominee Zoran Mamdani would become the party's standard bearer, instead pointing to Democrat figures like Arizona Senator Ruben Gallego. Nobody even really knows who that is. Or New Jersey Senator Cory Booker. Oh, Lord, please tell me that he's the leader of the Democrat Party. As host Jake Tapper noted Booker's recent engagement, Jennings interjected, saying Democrats will, for the foreseeable future, be run by none other than our pal Donald Trump. Check this out. This is a great piece here. Here you go. Here's Scott
Ruben
Jennings.
Gallego, who is a veteran, who has talked a lot about
Senator from Arizona.
Senator from Arizona, won Arizona, understands the Latino community. Latinos are, I think, going to be critical in the midterm elections and moving forward. And he, I think, is someone to watch. I think Cory Booker also did a really great job on the House floor, talking about how people have been impacted by Trump. And so I think those are the two to watch moving
Cory
forward.
Booker recently engaged. Congratulations.
Recently engaged, Cory Booker.
Well, I mean, for the foreseeable future, the person who's running the Democratic Party now is going to be running it. That's Donald Trump. I mean, the only thing they know how to do is be against whatever he is for. And so there is no leader of the party except for Trump. The beating heart of the Democratic Party is if Trump is for it, we're against it, and you throw a little socialism on the side. That's basically how they work.
All right, thanks. I know. Let the record reflect that the two Democrats at the panel disagreed with.
Well, he's exactly right, though. And I've said on multiple occasions that if Donald Trump came out in favor of oxygen, the Democrats would be against it and they'd just all stop breathing. Perhaps they should do that. But it's true. Think about it, right? The only thing that the Democrats do is object to Donald Trump. Whatever it is, if his name is in its orbit, whatever you're talking about, the Democrats are against it. They don't have their own policy proposals. They don't have their own ideas of fixing things. Instead, it's just hate Trump all the time. And, to that extent, in Wyoming, it's very similar. I mean, there's, of course, most of the Democrats are hiding out in the Republican Party, the Redcoats. And they have to be really careful about being as anti-Trump as they are, because if that gets out, this year is an election year, or next year is. What I meant is next session is an election year. So if it gets out that they're in any way anti-Trump, or they can be painted that way, they're probably not going to get elected, and they know that. But they still, in order to get elected in their district, they got to be a Republican, and so they just kind of keep up the ruse. And that's kind of one of my jobs here, is to point out where the redcoats are at any given moment, and to let you in on it. So you heard them mention Bill Maher and Cory Booker's engagement photo. Did you see any of his engagement photos? They look like they are entirely contrived. Now, I mean, my engagement photos are our engagement photos, me and the lovely Christine. I mean, you can tell. You can look at them that we're both super, super happy, and you can tell that they're entirely, candid shots. Not Cory Booker's. Well, Bill Maher says that Cory Booker's engagement photos are an ad for prescription drugs. It's absolutely hilarious. Watch this.
New rule: after we congratulate Senator Cory Booker on his recent engagement, he has to explain why his engagement photos look like an ad for prescription drugs. Because these pictures don't make me think, great, now we can run for president without the stigma of being a bachelor. They make me think, don't let moderate to severe ulcerative colitis stand in your way. Ask your doctor about
Zolaxia. But look at him. It might be, the way the screen is set up here, it's kind of hard for me to see, but I know that it's big on your screen. But look at them. His laugh is almost maniacal, and I think they're entirely contrived. I think that it was entirely a photo setup or a photo shoot, but they're not authentic, which is, it should make perfect sense with the Democrat Party, because nothing they do is really authentic. They don't have any original ideas, and who they are, they have to lie about who they are, so that they can get any sort of acceptance in the American electorate. Most of these people, including Cory Booker, are radical socialists, and they're becoming even more so. There's somewhere here in the stack of stuff, I've got a piece about how the Democrat Party is actually lurching farther to the left. If you didn't think that they could, you're sorely mistaken. I can't find it, but it's buried somewhere in here. But the truth is, the more time goes on, the Democrats go farther and farther and farther to the left. Pretty soon, there's a lot of them are almost indistinguishable from Zoran Mamdani in New York. They are socialists, and the only reason why many of them haven't just come out and said, hey, I'm a socialist, is because it still carries that stigma. Most Americans look at that term and say, no. They know the history of socialism. They know what it does to countries. And most people are well informed enough that, they've watched Fox News, where, there's pictures of Venezuela or Cuba or any of the other socialist countries in Europe. By the way, let me find it here. Yeah. So in Great Britain, I've been talking about at least the last couple of episodes about all of their anti-free speech laws. Well, listen to this one. This one isn't, it kind of fits in there, but magician slapped with $579 fee from the city for using a bunny in his act. Yeah, a little rabbit, that they grab by the ears, Bugs, whatever his name is. And he's not going to be able to make this bill disappear. Listen to this. A children's magician in the central England town of Derby said he was blindsided with a $579 bill from his local council, all because his rabbit appears in shows. Stuart Brown, 60, known as Magic Stuart, told reporters that he had never had to pay for bringing out his bunny, Snowy, in more than 15 years of entertainment. But now, because of a new law and a new council, he's being charged this $579 fee. Quote, it just seems incredibly excessive. But my main gripe is that I'm being put in the same category as those with much larger animals, such as an animal menagerie. The city listed Snowy under its, quote, keeping and training animals for exhibition. And let's see here. And here's the cross on it. A $579 fee for 3 years. And to renew that fee is $443. Brown insisted that Snowy isn't trained and is barely used in his act. He isn't trained at, quote, he isn't trained at all. He's just a very tame rabbit that I bring out to greet the kids, Brown said. I just bring him out for like 10 minutes at the end of the show, and maybe he's out there for 20 minutes each month at most. When the council told me it was more than $500, I nearly dropped the phone. The council's fee lists animal charges at $1,515 for dog breeders with more than 11 females, or $928 for pet sellers, and over $1,350 for horse operators. Keeping dangerous wild animals runs at $1,000 a year. Now, Brown was laid off from a Toyota factory 2 decades ago, and he turned his magic hobby into a career performing at schools and charity events. And he said Snowy brings comfort to sick children and joy to audiences. I mean, but think about this. Socialism has expanded to a point where we have to tax the use of a rabbit in magic shows. And I mean, this is exactly what you get with a socialist government. And, it's not just that. I mean, I think that's one of those crazy one-offs that you get with socialism. But the reality is you have to continually take other people's money in order for socialism to exist. And it ends up cropping up in the weirdest of places. And this is one of them, that you continually jack up fees. And you have to charge a fee for everything in order to fund your socialism. And that's what it is. I mean, if you're the country that is jailing people because of their posts on Twitter or X or whatever you want to call it, I mean, not only is it a dictatorial, authoritarian state, which I think that's a key. I mean, if you're a socialist country, if you're an authoritarian country, if you're a dictatorial country, you have to squash free speech. I mean, that you have to do that. You can't allow religion because you have to have people believing in the state. And socialism is a belief system because it doesn't – there's never been an example of it in the history of the world that works. And so when there is no example of where it works, it really does become a belief system. No different than any other religion, though I would argue that I wouldn't argue. I know that Jesus is alive and was alive and is absolutely in control of this world. But, other, Hinduism, Buddhism, Islam, whatever, socialism is no different than all of those. That you have to believe in things that you can't prove. And with socialism, you can't prove that it has ever worked or ever will work. And to fund it, well, you got to take money from people for their bunnies. Another reason why we shouldn't ever look to Great Britain as an example of good government. If you want to be part of the program today, the phone number in the studio is 307-374-8989, 307-374-8989. If you want to talk about socialism, bunnies, Rush Limbaugh, or the next couple of stories that I'm going to get to. By the way, did you ever watch Tucker Carlson? I did. Man, when he was on Fox, I never missed an episode of his show. And if I wasn't going to be home, I set the DVR and recorded it. But I never missed it. I enjoyed his ability to debate. I thought that he was a pretty conservative guy, but he seems to really have gone off the rails recently. And I've got a couple sound bites here. And this is an example of, I think, that you have how we really need to know who it is that we're listening to, including me. Think about the ideas that I talk about on my show, and turn them over in your head. Read the things that I read to you, and read the things that might be a boast, and just make up your own mind. But I think that we need to be really cognizant of who it is that we're listening to. So I've got a couple of sound bites. Listen to this first one, in which Tucker Carlson is claiming that Hamas is really a political organization. Listen to this.
No one can plausibly claim that a Christian family are in Hamas. Okay, so tell me, you can't claim that they're in Hamas while simultaneously claiming that Hamas is group of jihadis. They're Islamic extremists, which they also claim constantly, which I don't know if that's true, by the way. It seems more like a political organization, but whatever it is, they're telling us constantly they're Al-Qaeda. So it can't also be true that Christians are a member of Al-Qaeda. Sorry.
Yeah.
So then we know they're not in Hamas. So why did they get killed?
Okay, so there you go. It's mainly a political organization. And okay, so the Palestinian, and maybe, okay. All right, quick history lesson. There's two other pieces that used to be Israel that are now, that Israel gave up into, to kind of foster so-called peace. I mean, it's not peace what they have right now. There's the West Bank and the Gaza Strip. The West Bank is controlled by the Palestinian Liberation Organization, the PLO, which is basically the political offshoot of Hamas. I mean, there's really no difference. When Yasser Arafat, when he was still running things, it was there was very little difference between his organization and the terrorist organization that we now associate with Hamas. So it's the PLO that's in the West Bank. In the Gaza Strip, or Gaza as it's normally called, it's Hamas that is in control. Now, Hamas was elected by the people of Gaza, but it's no different than a terrorist organization. And just to say that for Tucker Carlson to claim because they were elected that it's a political organization, I think that's really, really irresponsible. And I don't think that it's reality. If you're the group that fires thousands of rockets into Israel, you're not really a political organization. Maybe you have a political ideology that you're following, and certainly Hamas does have that. But really, when you get down to it, not really a political organization. That's just the cover, the veil that's put over it to convince simple-minded people. And I didn't used to think this of Tucker, but if you're going to believe in this sort of things, it kind of means that you're not looking into it. So anyway, that's the first soundbite. Now here's the second one. And this one ought to shock you. He says that he would give his condolences to Osama bin Laden's family. Listen to this, and then we'll talk about it.
Let me just say, I would be totally comfortable sharing condolences with Osama bin Laden's family. I hate Osama bin Laden. On the other hand, if somebody dies, it's okay to say, I'm sorry to his family that
he had a toddler.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
That's immaterial. I would say that to the family of an executed murderer in a prison. It doesn't mean I support the murder or the murderer, but this is family. That's okay. That's called human decency. And anyone who's against that.
Yeah. And it seems like we're setting up this.
Okay. All right. When you give your condolences to somebody else's family, it's, I'm sorry for your loss. I'm sorry that this person died. I'm really broken up inside because this person is no longer with us. I don't know a single person that would say they're sorry that Osama bin Laden's dead. I don't even have to say that. I know that I don't know a single person that sympathizes with Osama bin Laden. He was the mastermind behind September 11th. He's responsible for the deaths of thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of people the world over. I'm glad he's dead. Okay. Now, terrorism has to be, it's a family affair. And so if you're the person that's going to say, I'm getting my condolences for your loss, I think that is absolutely ridiculous. I know that that's absolutely ridiculous. And that he would say, well, I would give my condolences to a convicted murderer's family. I think you're entirely off base. You're not grounded in reality, and you're definitely not thinking about the implications of what it is that you're saying. Essentially, Tucker Carlson said that he's not sorry that Osama bin Laden's dead. Whatever else you want to say about that, but I think that he's entirely off the rails. And since he left Fox, I think I've watched probably 2 episodes, maybe 3. There was a couple of interviews I watched. One of them was with Ted Cruz, where he was just going crazy about Ted Cruz. In fact, let me just see here if I could find that soundbite of Tucker when he says that Mark Levin is a ghoul. That one is another one. So he's been having this ongoing spat I guess, with Mark Levin. And let's see here. And it's gotten to a point where even I have a hard time listening to Mark Levin, and I do like him. But he and Tucker going back and forth. Here's another one. Here's Tucker Carlson in reference to Mark Levin. And again, this is just further evidence that I think that he's kind of going off the rails a little bit. But listen to this.
End quote. Now, Ted Cruz is already taking a victory lap. He says, quote, it turns out that Tucker was wrong. I just want to get your thoughts on this, Tucker. Did Trump prove you and all of us who doubted the wisdom of this strike wrong tonight?
Well, you could ask Trump. I mean, was this fraught with like existential peril? Of course.
Okay. All right. Hold on. So this was right after the strikes on Iran. And Tucker has been on his show several times before the strikes, and he said, it was going to be World War III if we struck Iran, that thousands of people were going to die, that there was going to be an attack on America. And he has been absolutely proven wrong over and over and over and over with his stances on that. And so that is pretty much what this interview is focusing on. But let's go ahead and continue.
So grateful that he brought it in for a landing. I mean, I think we should be grateful to him. I think we should be grateful to God. I think we should understand how close we came. But I also think we should step back and ponder what we've learned. And what we've learned is who cares about the fortunes of the United States and who doesn't. And Ted Cruz doesn't, obviously. The people who acknowledge no risk at all because they were so focused on helping another country, like Ted Cruz or like the many people who revealed themselves in the last 2 weeks, Mark Levin, chief among them, like those people should not have any access to power at all. Those people rolled the dice with your life and with the lives of your children. It's disgusting. And so, I mean, just ask yourself, is Mark Levin concerned at all about the United States, like at all? And the answer is no. Mark Levin is a repulsive ghoul whose entire sex life consists of watching other people get blown up. He was upset that there was a ceasefire and said so. How could you be
so
upset?
What is he doing there? It's an attempt to get clicks, right? It's now I'll admit sometimes on my show I use a title that's a little bit clickbaity to get your attention, but I try really hard not to turn into Dinesh D'Souza, right? He's one of the guys on social media that irritates the crap out of me. He'll have a headline and it's entirely deceptive. And it makes you click on his article and read it, and what you almost all the time what you find is something completely opposite. Well, probably not opposite, but not completely unrelated to the headline. That's what Tucker is doing here. He's trying to get clicks. He's saying something that's outrageous to get you to listen to what he has to say. But think critically about what he says. Does Ted Cruz and Mark Levin, do they care about the country at all? Absolutely, they do. They do. And to claim that they don't is ridiculous. To throw like crazy smears like he's a ghoul and the thing that he said there at the end, absolutely outrageous. So I really do think that Tucker Carlson has kind of gone off the cliff a little bit, and it's kind of sad to watch. I used to really enjoy his program, but not so much anymore. All right, let's get back to the news. From the Blaze. Federal agents arrest nearly 500 in immigration raid on a Hyundai plant. So that's one plant that they executed a raid on, and they arrested nearly 500 illegals there. Here's what the Blaze says, quote, Homeland Security investigations announced a massive raid at a Hyundai plant in Georgia that resulted in the arrest of hundreds of individuals. HSI, Homeland Security, Immigration and Customs Enforcement, and other federal agencies participated in an operation on Thursday into, quote, unlawful employment practices and other serious federal crimes. As of today, it is our understanding, and this is quoting now, is our understanding that none of those detained is directly employed by Hyundai. Well, it was at your plant, so whether you're using a subcontractor or not, they were kind of in your building. Federal law enforcement agents arrested 475 individuals who were illegally present in the United States or in violation of their presence in the United States, according to Stephen Schrank, special agent in charge of HSI for Georgia and Alabama. Quote, yesterday, Homeland Security investigations in coordination with our law enforcement partners executed a judicial search warrant as part of an ongoing criminal investigation into allegations of unlawful employment practices and serious federal crimes. This was not an immigration operation where agents went into the premises, rounded up folks, and put them on buses, he continued. This has been a multi-month criminal investigation where we have developed evidence, conducted interviews, gathered documents, and presented that evidence to the court in order to obtain a judicial search warrant. He stated that the arrested individuals, the majority of whom were South Korean nationals, were working unlawfully. Schrank explained that some of these individuals had either crossed the border illegally, overstayed their visas, or entered the country through visa waivers, but were not permitted to work. Lee Jae-woong, a spokesperson for South Korea's foreign ministry, stated Friday, quote, "The economic activities of our investment companies and the rights and interests of our citizens must not be unjustly violated during U.S. law enforcement proceedings." So this is a major car company that set up shop in America, in Georgia, and they didn't employ Americans to work in their factory. No, because that would cost them too much. So they employed South Korean citizens who were in this country illegally to work in their plants. So while, yes, it is an investment in America, bringing that plant here, assembling their cars here, whatever it is that they're doing, they staffed their plant with illegal immigrants. And so I think that this speaks to, I got to stop using that word, I think. I know that this speaks to the lack of respect that other countries have for our laws. So they get the benefits of being, investing in America, and the president probably goes out and says, hey, we've got this big, huge investment from this company. But on the back end, these businesses are being staffed with folks who are in this country illegally. I mean, it is exploitation in its highest form. You're absolutely flouting American law. You're disregarding it and thinking that because you're investing in the country that you can employ whoever you want here. And this is a perfect example of why we have to stop illegal immigration in this country. A lot of folks would say, well, it's illegal immigrants, they do the work that Americans won't do. They're gardeners and they pick our vegetables and assemble our cars. None of that stuff is true, my friends. If given the opportunity, Americans will work. And I keep going back to that example in Kansas of a meatpacking plant that was, I think ICE arrested 75 individuals there that were in this country illegally. And the media went bananas over, well, how is this meatpacking plant going to staff itself now that all their workforce has been arrested? The very next day, their human resources office was inundated with applications for people that live right there, legal American citizens wanting a job. The reason they couldn't get a job before is because it was staffed by illegal immigrants. So it is these two, the meatpacking plant, this Hyundai plant, they're both examples of the results of massive illegal immigration in this country. And it's the very reason why we have to get rid of these folks. They have to be arrested. And the companies that employ them, they need to be held accountable as well. Because it's those folks who are cutting the check and they're knowingly employing people who have no legitimate reason to work here at all. Let's take a quick break. And when we come back, we'll finish up the program. Back in a minute. Are you tired of all the meaningless political drivel floating around right now? Endless commentary that really doesn't have anything backing it up? Do you long for the days of true investigative journalism coming from an authoritative source who really doesn't care how popular and apparently good-looking a politician is? Fortunately for you, that's what I do on Cowboy State Politics. New episodes are published every Monday, Wednesday, and Saturday, and you can get them anywhere that you get your podcasts. iHeartRadio, iTunes, TuneIn, really any of them will work. But the easiest way is just to go to the website, cowboystatepolitics.com. There, you can find all of the shows, as well as any of the articles I might bring up during the course of the program. Cowboy State Politics Live, the program you're listening to right now, is broadcast every Tuesday through Friday beginning at 8 a.m. Pay attention to all of that other block-headed nonsense if you want. Just make sure that you don't miss an episode of Cowboy State Politics. And now, back to our program. Welcome back to the program. David Iverson, Cowboy State Politics Live on a Tuesday. You can listen to the live program, watch the live program every Tuesday through Friday from 8 to 10 a.m. on YouTube, Facebook, X, and on Rumble. And if I had my way, a couple of other places. I'm working on it, my friends, but being a one-man show, it kind of constrains me a little bit. I need a whole team working on this. No, actually I don't, because everything you see on Cowboy State Politics, it's just me. And I was talking with one of my last trips to Jackson. I was talking with one of the folks that was at the event that I attended. And the big question was, no, wait a minute. You have all of these views and you've done all of this yourself. And my answer to them was, absolutely, this is all me. And I'm incredibly proud of it. And I got to tell you, my friends, if you want to do this, you can do it too. It's just, it's an example of good old hard work and what happens when you put your mind to it. So welcome back to the program, my friends. And we've been talking all program long about the free market. And it seems that, the more I do this program, the more I realize that most of everything that we talk about always goes back to essential principles. Before the break, it was illegal immigration, and so anyway, it's I'm really glad that you're listening. Thank you for watching, and I couldn't do anything that I do without you. So let's go ahead and take a call, and we're going to talk to Kathy in Dayton. Kathy, how you doing this morning?
Hey, good. Thank you for. Let me turn down my thing. Thanks for, I don't know if I've missed your topic, but I am actually part of the Women's Republican Party too, and I'm in transportation for 30 years. And so I've testified just this last YDOT. I understand exactly what you're talking about, the companies exploiting, especially in transportation. We've seen for 30 years, being in trucking, I've seen an industry just totally beginning to be decimated.
Yes.
And it's a struggle being a Wyoming trucker. We do interstate. We're not intra so much. All of our stuff is hauling Wyoming goods in and out. And I'm telling you, it is a hard struggle. And Wyoming is becoming a blackout state because of this situation that's going on. Broker fraud. You have no idea. We got hit last year so hard for, illegals sabotaging our truck, cutting the bolts off of our wheels of our semi-truck and loading, and they go rolling off down, hitting the side of our semi-truck, and they jump out of the truck, without any licensing and all of that, So I did testify, and I am going to still continue to be a voice out there, although I am, a member of OOIDA, which is a voice that's hitting our, for the independent truckers. I don't have really a voice in Wyoming other than me standing my ground as an independent trucker.
Well, no, I think that's that's one of the beautiful things, not to interrupt you, but that's one of the beautiful things about where we live is that it's actually really easy to get a hold of our elected officials. And, I know that I know that sometimes you get the feeling that, I'm just one person. What can I do? Who's going to listen to me? What difference can I make? And the truth is, you can make a big difference. And it's, I can tell you that this program, is absolutely a fact about that. Like, I published a story, this is a different topic, but last week I published a story about the schools and how local school districts are just screwing their teachers and their staffs, not just the teachers. And you would not believe the response I got from folks in Cheyenne. And so, when you show up at a meeting, and it doesn't really matter what the topic is, but if it's trucking or, teachers or whatever, you show up in a committee meeting and individual people can directly hold our elected officials accountable. And it's very different than in any other state. You go to South Dakota or Colorado or Montana, you may or you may not get a chance to testify. At least here in Wyoming, man, if you got a gripe with the government, it's pretty easy to talk to them. And it sounds to me like with trucking, we got a bigger issue than any of us really know.
We do, and that was one of the things I wanted YDOT, and no offense to them when I bring it up to them. We have people on that committee that haven't done the time behind, what we call behind the window. They don't do the driving down the road to see all the stuff that's happening in every state you travel, right? What's one of the things about an independent trucker that does interstate trucking is that they get to see every state, not just Wyoming. We get to see every state, what is happening. And there's more stuff out there that is in dire need of attention. We don't need more laws. We need our state to be more diligent in understanding and protecting their homegrown truckers and that, because it's getting to the point where it's becoming almost virtually impossible to sustain your truck company because they're taxing and regulating us to the point of non-existent. It is so difficult, and we're the ones with the skin in the game, bringing every bit of your loads to you,
like
everything. Everything. And Wyoming is going after more road tax. That was what I went after. They don't really think that we understand. We're paying our due diligence for IFTA. That's not the whole thing. But they just passed a bill earlier this year or last year in legislation that I had our legislators say, you better think about this. And I contacted them and told them for 18-year-olds to be behind the wheel of a hazmat vehicle. And they did it for one particular, I won't get into the weeds of who it was, but they placated to one industry person that is a big person in Wyoming that it would benefit because they want cheap labor. Well, that's not always the best thing on the road now, is cheap labor is not what you want. You want experienced drivers. You don't want 18-year-olds. Yes, I understand they're qualified, but let me tell you something. Nobody in Wyoming in our type of weather is qualified at 18 years old to have out there by themselves. You get out there in the big old world in trucking, you're by yourself.
Yeah.
You're totally alone by yourself. If something goes sideways, it's your spontaneous, instantaneous, and something horrible could happen if you don't know how to handle that rig.
A good example of that is my uncle, his name's Chuck. He's been a lifelong over-the-road truck driver, and he'll tell you for like every time I've ever brought this topic up to him, he'll tell you that when you're going over the mountain, he never goes over 14. He doesn't care how long around he has to go. And when he comes down 16, it's in a lower gear all the way from the top all the way to the bottom. And when you're a younger trucker, you don't know those things. You don't know that, hey, maybe you shouldn't pay attention to your GPS, because if you do, you'll end up in Crazy Woman Canyon, and it'll be a week before they get your truck out. But I agree with you. Hey, let me ask you something, Kathy. Did you hear the episode about our county commissioner, Nick Siddle, advocating for the jacking the fuel tax up? Did you hear about that story?
I was there. I was on the line with him. I testified on that. I told him he was absolutely wrong. I'm from Sheridan County.
Yeah. I
don't
see it.
agree with a lot of their stuff, right? And I had conversation. Yeah, I testified against it at that particular time. I and when Senator Pappas said, he got angry with the Wyoming Trucking Association, they don't represent me as the independent trucker. They represent the big boys of Sheridan and of Wyoming. Wyoming Trucking Association does. So they're not for independent truckers like me. So I have nothing against them, but they don't have the same issues. Sometimes they vote in favor of the legislation and not for the truck companies like me. So they do their job. But I do believe the new guy that they have on there, I was pretty darn impressed with him. And so Pappas got a little edgy with him and said, well, we've got that $400 million thing. How do you think we're going to pay for this?
Right.
Well, I made that comment. I responded back to him with that, I understand you're in a pickle, sir, but that's not what IFTA is for. We're giving you the money. You take away, I said there's 7 pages of exemptions on companies that have big rigs that are on your highway, even the mega loads, that you're not getting the money on these exemptions on these mega loads that are breaking down the bridges, breaking down and crumbling on those humongous mega loads.
Right.
So, don't play it all on us. Getting back to that 18-year-old, the minute they passed that law, my commercial truck insurance went up a huge amount, and it has gone up this year for our commercial licensing. And I asked my underwriter, and he said that it's because Wyoming now has been a high-risk state now. We are now commercial trucking high risk.
Awesome. Thank you very much, politicians. Incidentally, I was at a meeting. I went to a meeting with Agent 29, my producer, and we walk in, and one of the county commissioners, Nick Siddle, grabs him and wants to talk about raising the fuel tax. And Agent 29 listened to him, and finally, when he finished, Ken looks at him and says, "I think you should get used to the word no for a while. I'm not voting for that." And it's it's been so long since, and probably never, that Wyoming has had some conservative people that actually have positions of authority. So I think in at least a couple of cases, we're really blessed to have folks like Agent 29 and Lori Bratton, and I think that Tom Kelly does a good job too. So for the most part in Sheridan, I think at the state level we're pretty well represented. Hey, did you attend the women's luncheon or the Patriot Chat last night in Sheridan?
Yes, that was me.
Yep.
Not the chat. I stood up. I saw it. I was there. I wasn't going to bring that was me grilling in the lime green shirt, grilling our great treasurer. So, yeah. And I've also testified. I'm very adamant and been on the nuclear. I'm the one that helped do the resolution for the nuclear waste. I'm the Hanford gal.
Well, it's, as it relates to that, I'm not against nuclear power. In fact, I think that it's definitely the most abundant resource that we have. It's virtually unlimited power. What I am against, however, is nuclear waste. I don't want it in Wyoming. I don't want it anywhere near my state, and I certainly don't want it near my community. And I really think that a lot of this talk in Cheyenne it's all about money, and it's those. And here's the beautiful part of it, Kathy. No pun intended. That subject is so toxic that if there's a politician that's in favor of it, they're not winning the next election. I mean, it's the polling is incredibly biased one way, or not biased is the wrong word, but it's most people in Wyoming are against all this nuclear waste. So I like the resolution.
Well, they weren't 4 years. They weren't 4 years ago when I first stood up in the Patriot Chats. They told me to sit down. I was the first voice that brought up and testified, even amongst them, when our storage bill was that. I'm part of the women's LAC group here, in Republican Women's LAC group too, and I put a voice in. I helped with action alerts, It's not that didn't mean to cut you off, but it's not like I am for or against the responsible. I've lived in a nuclear state, Washington State, half of my life. I lived next to them, right? That wasn't my issue. We're going to have those type of energies. It's the abundance of what I saw. Hanford is not just the Manhattan Project. It's the waste that came under Dixie Lee Ray and the governors after that brought in waste beyond repair. That's what I don't want to, and there is no money generated that ever came of it. In fact, it's more expenditure. It's a lifetime of citizens' costs of tax money that has cost Washington State enormous amount of being now the highest tax state that they've ever reached because of the lawsuits, because the contractors that went in there for the nuclear are the same ones coming here to Wyoming. This is deja vu for me. Why everybody says, well, how do you know so much? I've lived it. I've lived the nightmare, and I'm living it again. I didn't move to Wyoming to relive this nightmare. And here it is right in front of me. And it's the most helpless feeling of knowing what the next play is going to be right before our eyes, and not having everybody see the gaslighting. It is total gaslight. We will be, in their eyes, the next repository.
Oh, yeah.
You can bet their bottom dollar, because we're the least populated. And I've got so much research and documented time into my making sure that I have everything accurately following my ladies, and I've got every government document book on their agenda. So it's not that I'm skilled at it. I'm lived it. Once you've lived it.
Well, and I think
I just don't want that for us. It's not what you want here, because you can't get rid of it.
Yeah, well, it's a forever thing.
Wyoming beyond all. It is a forever thing. And then that's what they need. They need to get these done. They need to get all of this out. And here's the next place. You can mark my words on it right now as I tell you. And you're seeing it in the news right now. They want your water. They're coming after our water. I've said that to our commissioners, and they laugh at me. Sheridan County commissioners, they can't take our water. They're coming after our water.
Yeah.
We don't have an abundance of water, but these reactors and everything that they're doing in every schematic that I've read and studied, they need water. They need water for cooling. Wyoming doesn't have that luxury like we had in Washington State, where we're, abundance of water.
Yeah, it's not just that. It's the data centers, it's the nuclear reactors, it's that crazy. I don't even know which company it was, but Chuck Gray was telling me that there was this company that wanted to convert water into synthetic jet fuel, and they were going to pipe it to Colorado. I mean, you're right about that. Well, Kathy, I got to run, but thank you very much for calling.
You bet.
Make sure you call in anytime.
We got off the subject.
That's all right.
Sorry about that, sir. We got off the subject, but on the trucking or on the news of the illegals, keep it going, because that is off my record, and I know you got to go. That is what they're placating on these people. They're bringing these third world people in, and they're paying them nothing.
Yep.
Nothing.
You're
to run
exactly
their
right.
truck.
Yep.
And Amazon is the worst one, and the United States Postal Service hires third world contractors, and they have the worst accidents and safety on our highways. I just want you to know those two companies.
Yep. Well, it's
have the worst, and they placate them.
Absolutely, they do. Well, Kathy, appreciate you calling.
Thank you.
All right. Have a good afternoon. All right. So if you want to be part of the program, we've got a few minutes left in the show. The phone number is 307-374-8989, 307-374-8989. Now, Kathy's absolutely correct. And, there's a lot of states that, they're really not looking at the results of their actions, issuing driver's licenses to illegals, issuing driver's licenses to people they can't read. There was a story a couple weeks ago where a couple of truckers were stopped and they couldn't read. So how are you going to read a stop sign? How are you going to read any of our our transportation signs? You're not going to be able to. It's one of the reasons why the legislature last session decided they're not going to recognize driver's licenses issued to illegal immigrants from other states. But the problem is you only catch that when you pull the truck over. So these folks are driving down our interstates in a fully loaded semi-trailer, and like Kathy said, if it's an 18-year-old that doesn't have the experience going down the mountain, or if they're just rolling down I-80 or I-90, they still don't have the experience, and in some cases they can't even read. So our legislature needs to take a hard look at that, and I hope they do in the next session. Fortunately, we've got some good people in charge of the House, so the nuclear stuff that Kathy and I were talking about, I don't think that's going to make it out of the House. At least I hope not. And, that's something that it's going to be around forever. It's not something you're going to get out of. Well, I've got one more article that I wanted to tell you about. And this one, it made me chuckle. It's from the New York Post. Rising sea hysteria debunked, but the climate change cult doesn't care. And this is one of those other things. I mentioned that believing in some of this stuff, socialism, is a religion. Well, so is climate change. Let me read to you what this says. Quote, yet another much predicted climate change catastrophe turns out to be baseless. Worldwide sea levels are not rising any faster than a century ago. This doesn't mean that climate change isn't happening. In fact, I think that it is. It just happens on a much longer timeline than a lot of these fanatics claim. It doesn't happen in years. It happens over thousands of years. And it's Wyoming is a perfect example of that. Let me give you an example. Where did all the coal come from? It wasn't just magically deposited here. No, at one time, Wyoming was a giant rainforest. It's organic material that makes coal over many, many years. And that's where it came from. If you go south of Buffalo into the Red Hills, you can dig your hand into the side of any of that shale, and you'll probably come up with seashells. You can drive up Highway 16 or 14, doesn't matter which one you go, but up in the Bighorns, and you can find seashells in the side of hills. So how did they get there? Well, this place was a giant ocean at one time. So, but all of this doesn't mean that climate change isn't happening. Not that particular locales don't face rising sea problems, but it does mean that there's no apocalypse that's coming unless the whole world takes drastic action to prevent it. That doesn't happen. That's not a thing. That's not going to happen. For decades, complex climate change models have indicated global sea levels to be rising at twice or more than the historic level. But until now, no scientist has bothered checking that against the actual observed reality. Dutch engineer Hazel Voortman and researcher Rob de Vos finally did the work. Their peer-reviewed study in the Journal of Marine Science and Engineering, quote, a global perspective on local sea level changes, shows the model has gotten it completely wrong this entire time, which should come as absolutely no surprise whatsoever to any of you. The models, which extrapolated from observations in the Antarctic only, plus a host of assumptions about how the oceans respond to rising global temperatures, suggested that sea levels rose by a foot to 3 feet, or will rise to a foot by 3 feet by 2100. Instead, indeed, Princeton University Michael Oppenheimer predicted in 2019 that the sea levels would rise by more than 34 inches by the end of the century. But the Dutch researchers' first ever global study of sea level change refutes those claims and raises the huge question of why no one else had bothered to test the predictions. Because they don't care. Because climate change has nothing to do with evidence. It has nothing to do with the facts on the ground. It is a religion, and it is a religion that is designed to sap more of your money. And that's what it is, my friends. This whole thing is a money game. Governor Gordon's climate change stuff, his carbon capture, all of that stuff, the windmills, the solar panels, all of it is just an attempt to get more of your money. I'll probably talk about more of this tomorrow. I've got another story about cloud seeding that I know it's my weird brain that wants to talk about those sorts of things, but I find the contradiction fascinating, and I can't resist going after Chai Kam Sam. Well, we've burned up another busy broadcast, 2 hours on the program. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. We'll be back tomorrow with a podcast and with Cowboy State Politics Live. But for now, from the base of the Bighorns, I'm David Iverson, and this is Cowboy State Politics. See you tomorrow, my friends. Have a good afternoon.